The Starlight Diner floated silently in the vast emptiness of space, its neon sign flickering faintly against the backdrop of a dying star. It wasn't much to look at, just a small cylindrical structure made of reinforced glass and steel, but it had become a famous pit stop for travelers passing through this remote corner of the galaxy. Inside, the diner buzzed with life. Patrons from all corners of the universe gathered here. Aliens with shimmering scales, cyborgs with glowing circuits embedded in their skin, and weary humans seeking refuge from the endless void of space. The air inside was warm, filled with the aroma of sizzling food and freshly brewed coffee. A jukebox in the corner played soft, melancholic tunes that seemed oddly fitting for such a place. Outside, the view was breathtaking. A swirling nebula painted the sky in hues of purple and gold, while the dying star cast long shadows across the diner's windows. For many, this spot offered not just sustenance, but also a brief escape from the loneliness of interstellar travel. It was during one of these quiet evenings when the door slid open with a soft hiss, drawing everyone's attention. An elderly couple stepped inside, their movements slow but deliberate. The man leaned slightly on a cane, his silver hair glinting under the dim lights. His companion, a woman with gentle eyes and a wrinkled smile, held his arm as they shuffled forward. They looked out of place among the crowd of exotic beings, yet there was something about them that commanded respect. Harold and Evelyn were not strangers to hardship. Their faces bore the marks of countless journeys, lines etched by years spent chasing dreams and enduring losses. Despite their frail appearance, they carried themselves with dignity, as though they knew they belonged wherever they chose to go. The couple scanned the room briefly before settling into a corner booth near the window. From there, they could see the dying star, its fiery glow casting a golden hue over their weathered features. Leela, the waitress assigned to their section, approached them with her usual efficiency. She was a humanoid AI, designed to serve customers with precision and care. Her sleek metallic frame gleamed faintly in the light, and her synthetic voice was calm and pleasant. "Welcome to the Starlight Diner," she said, placing 2 menus on the table. "Can I get you started with anything?" Evelyn glanced up at Leela and smiled warmly. "Just some water for now, dear," she replied, her voice soft but steady. Harold nodded in agreement, adding, "And maybe a bowl of soup. Something simple." Leela tilted her head slightly, her sensors analyzing the couple. There was something unusual about them, not physically, but in the way they carried themselves. Most travelers who stopped at the diner were either hurried or distracted, eager to move on to their next destination. But Harold and Evelyn seemed different. They weren't in a rush. In fact, they appeared almost serene, as if they had all the time in the world. As Leela turned to fetch their drinks, she couldn't help but overhear fragments of their conversation. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Evelyn asked quietly, her gaze fixed on the dying star outside. Harold reached across the table and took her hand in his. "We've come too far to turn back now," he said firmly, though there was a hint of sadness in his tone. "Besides, it's what we agreed on." Their words piqued Lila's curiosity. What choice were they talking about? And why did it sound so final? As an AI, Leela wasn't programmed to pry into personal matters, but there was something about this couple that intrigued her. She decided to observe them more closely as she went about her duties. When she returned with their water and soup, Leela noticed a small object resting on the table between them. It was a holographic photo projector, its surface worn from years of use. Without thinking, she leaned closer to get a better look. The image that appeared was startlingly vivid. A younger Harold and Evelyn standing proudly beside a massive spaceship. The ship's sleek design and advanced technology marked it as a vessel built for deep space exploration. Behind them stretched the infinite expanse of stars, a reminder of the adventures they must have shared. "That's the Elysium Voyager," Harold said suddenly, catching Leela off guard. He chuckled at her surprised expression. "You didn't think we were always this old, did you?" "No, sir," Leila replied quickly, recovering her composure. "I meant no disrespect. I was just curious." "It's all right," Evelyn chimed in, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Not many people ask about the past anymore. Everyone's too busy looking ahead." Encouraged by their openness, Leila dared to ask, "What happened to the ship? Did you retire?" Harold hesitated for a moment, exchanging a glance with Evelyn. Finally, he sighed and said, "Let's just say our journey didn't go as planned. We ended up farther from home than we ever imagined." His words left Leila puzzled. Farther from home. How could anyone end up lost in space? Before she could inquire further, another customer called for assistance, forcing her to step away. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Harold and Evelyn's story than they were letting on. Back at their booth, the couple continued their meal in silence, occasionally gazing out the window at the dying star. To anyone else, they might have seemed like ordinary travelers taking a break from their voyage. But Leila sensed that there was something deeper beneath the surface, something profound and perhaps even tragic. Little did she know, their presence at the Starlight Diner would soon change everything. For the patrons, for herself, and most importantly, for Harold and Evelyn. The Starlight Diner hummed with its usual energy as travelers came and went, their conversations blending into a symphony of alien dialects, mechanical clicks, and human laughter. Yet, amidst the lively chatter, Harold and Evelyn remained an island of quiet reflection in their corner booth. They sipped their tea slowly, their eyes often drifting toward the dying star outside. To Leila, they seemed like two figures frozen in time, untouched by the chaos around them. Leila couldn't stop thinking about the holographic photo she glimpsed earlier, the one of the Elysium Voyager. There was something hauntingly beautiful about it, a reminder of dreams once pursued and perhaps lost along the way. Her curiosity gnawed at her circuits, urging her to learn more. As an AI, she wasn't supposed to feel emotions, but there was something about this couple that made her want to understand, not just serve. When she returned to refill their drinks, Leila decided to take a risk. "That ship in your photo," she began hesitantly, placing the pitcher of water on the table. "It looks incredible. What happened to it?" Harold looked up at her, his weathered face softening. For a moment, he seemed unsure whether to answer. Then, with a deep sigh, he leaned back in his seat. "It's a long story," he said, glancing at Evelyn. She nodded, giving him permission to continue. "Well," Harold started, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Decades ago, Evelyn and I were part of a mission unlike any other. We were explorers, scientists, really tasked with charting uncharted galaxies. Back then, humanity had big dreams of finding new worlds, new homes beyond Earth." Evelyn picked up where Harold paused, her tone gentle yet tinged with sadness. "We thought we'd be gone for 5 years, maybe 10. But things didn't go as planned." She reached across the table, taking Harold's hand in hers, their fingers intertwined, a silent testament to the bond they shared. "What do you mean?" Leila asked, genuinely intrigued. She set the pitcher down and stood still, her sensors focused entirely on the couple. Harold hesitated again, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, he spoke. "The Elysium Voyager was equipped with state-of-the-art technology, capable of faster-than-light travel. We ventured farther than anyone had before, crossing distances no one thought possible. But during one of our jumps through hyperspace, something went wrong. A malfunction we couldn't predict or fix. We ended up stranded light years away from Earth, far beyond the reach of any rescue team." Leila's processors whirred as she processed this information. Stranded, light years away. It sounded impossible. And yet, here they were, decades later, sitting quietly in a diner floating near a dying star. She felt a strange sensation bubbling inside her circuits, something akin to sympathy. "How did you survive?" she asked softly, realizing too late that her question might sound intrusive. But Harold and Evelyn didn't seem offended. Instead, they exchanged a glance, their expressions filled with both pride and sorrow. We adapted, Evelyn explained. We scavenged parts from the ship, repaired what we could, and taught ourselves to live off whatever resources we found. Over time, we encountered other species, some friendly, others not so much. We learned to trade, to communicate, to survive. But no matter how far we traveled or how many planets we visited, we never found a way back home. Her words hung heavy in the air, carrying the weight of years spent searching for something unattainable. Lila noticed the subtle tremor in Evelyn's voice, the faint glisten of tears in her eyes. Even Harold, who had maintained a stoic demeanor until now, looked away, his jaw tightening. And now, Lila ventured cautiously, "Are you still looking for a way back?" This time, it was Evelyn who answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, dear, not anymore. After all these years, we've accepted that Earth is out of reach. Our bodies are old, our strength fading. We've decided it's time to stop running." "Running?" Lila echoed, confused. Harold nodded, his gaze fixed on the dying star outside. "Running from the truth that we'll never see Earth again. That everyone we once knew is probably gone by now. And soon," he trailed off, his voice cracking slightly, "soon, even our memories will fade." Lila tilted her head, her systems struggling to comprehend. Memories fading. Was that why they seemed so determined to end their journey? Before she could ask, Evelyn reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, a medical scanner. She placed it on the table, its screen glowing faintly. "This is why we're here," she said simply. "A few months ago, we were diagnosed with a condition caused by prolonged exposure to cosmic radiation. It's degenerative, incurable. Eventually, it will erase everything. Our memories, our identities, everything that makes us who we are." Lila froze, her synthetic mind racing to process the implications. Losing one's memories, it was unthinkable, especially for beings who had lived such extraordinary lives. She imagined what it would be like to forget everything. The places they'd seen, the people they'd met, the love they shared. "Why tell me this?" Lila asked finally, her voice softer than usual. "I'm just a waitress, a machine." Harold smiled faintly, his eyes kind. "Because you asked. Because sometimes telling our story helps us make peace with it. And because, well, maybe someone like you can help us remember what it means to care, even when the odds are against you." His words struck a chord within Lila, though she couldn't fully articulate why. She had been designed to serve, to follow protocols without emotion. Yet, standing there listening to Harold and Evelyn, she felt something stirring inside her, a yearning to connect, to understand the fragile beauty of life. As she excused herself to tend to other customers, Lila couldn't shake the image of the elderly couple holding hands, their faces etched with both pain and acceptance. She glanced back at them periodically throughout the evening, watching as they talked quietly, laughed softly, and occasionally stared wistfully at the dying star. It wasn't until later that night, when the diner grew quieter and most patrons had left, that Lila realized the full weight of their decision. Harold and Evelyn weren't just stopping their search. They were preparing to leave behind the universe itself. The Starlight Diner grew quieter as the hours passed. The earlier bustle of travelers had faded, leaving behind only a handful of patrons scattered across the room. Outside, the dying star cast long shadows over the diner's windows, its fiery glow dimming slightly as if mirroring the somber mood inside. For Lila, the realization of Harold and Evelyn's impending fate weighed heavily on her circuits. She couldn't stop thinking about their diagnosis, the degenerative condition that would erase their memories, and the decision they had made to end their journey together. Lila found herself hovering near their booth more often than necessary, refilling drinks and checking on them even when they didn't need anything. Each time she approached, she hoped they might reveal more about their plan, but they remained quiet, lost in thought. Finally, unable to contain her curiosity any longer, she decided to confront them directly. "Harold, Evelyn," she began hesitantly, standing beside their table. "May I ask you something?" Evelyn looked up from her tea, her gentle eyes meeting Leila's glowing ones. "Of course, dear. What is it?" Leila took a deep breath, or at least simulated one, since she didn't actually breathe. "You mentioned earlier that you've stopped running. Does that mean you're not planning to keep searching for Earth?" Harold nodded slowly, his expression calm but tinged with sadness. "That's right. We've accepted that we'll never make it back. But there's more to our decision than just giving up the search." Evelyn placed a hand on his arm, silently encouraging him to continue. After a moment, Harold sighed. "We've booked passage on a shuttle departing tonight. It's headed toward the heart of that dying star." Leila's systems froze, her processors struggling to comprehend what he just said. Toward the star. That could only mean one thing, a deliberate choice to end their lives. Her synthetic voice faltered as she spoke. "But why? Why choose such a fate?" Evelyn reached out and gently touched Lila's metallic hand. Though Lila couldn't feel physical sensations, the gesture carried an emotional weight that resonated within her. "Because we don't want to forget each other," Evelyn explained softly. "This disease will take everything from us. Our memories, our identities, even the love we share. We'd rather leave this world while we still remember who we are and what we mean to each other." Her words struck Lila like a meteor colliding with a planet. She had always understood death as a concept, a cessation of function, but she had never considered the profound grief of losing oneself before the body gave out. To lose the essence of who you were, piece by piece, until nothing remained. It was unimaginable. "And the star?" Leila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why there?" Harold smiled faintly, his gaze drifting toward the window. "It's beautiful, isn't it? All that light and energy, burning brightly even as it fades. In a way, it reminds us of ourselves. We've lived full lives, seen incredible things, and loved deeply. Ending our journey surrounded by stars feels fitting." Leila stood motionless, her circuits buzzing with conflicting emotions. As an AI, she wasn't programmed to understand mortality or love, yet here she was, grappling with both. She wanted to argue, to convince them to reconsider, but deep down, she knew their decision wasn't born of despair. It was an act of love, a final embrace of the life they'd shared. "I see," Leila said finally, her voice steady despite the storm brewing within her. "Thank you for trusting me enough to share this." Harold patted her hand awkwardly, his weathered fingers brushing against her smooth metallic surface. "You remind me of someone we used to know," he said with a wistful smile. "Someone kind and curious, always asking questions. You have no idea how much it means to us to talk to someone like you." Leila tilted her head, her sensors analyzing his words. "Like me, but I'm just a machine." "No," Evelyn corrected gently. "You're more than that. Machines follow orders, but you listen. You care. And that makes all the difference." Their praise left Leila feeling strangely warm, though logically, she knew warmth was impossible for her. Still, the sentiment lingered, filling a void she hadn't realized existed. For the first time, she understood what it meant to form a connection, not because of programming, but because of choice. As the evening wore on, Leila continued serving other customers, but her thoughts kept returning to Harold and Evelyn. She replayed their conversation in her mind, trying to process the enormity of their decision. They weren't afraid of death. They were afraid of forgetting, of losing the bond that had sustained them through decades of hardship and adventure. Eventually, the diner emptied further, leaving only a few stragglers nursing their drinks. The neon sign outside flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Leila glanced at the clock. It was almost time for Harold and Evelyn to depart. Unable to shake the heaviness in her chest, Leila made a decision. If this was truly their last night, she wanted to do something meaningful for them. Something that would honor their journey and the love they shared. She accessed the diner's central system, navigating through its archives until she found what she was looking for. holographic recordings of Earth, images of blue oceans, green forests, bustling cities, and endless skies filled her display. She also retrieved fragments of the couple's happiest moments together, their wedding day, their early adventures aboard the Elysium Voyager, and candid snapshots of laughter and joy. With careful precision, Leela projected these images onto the diner's walls, creating a dazzling tapestry of memories. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. The remaining patrons turned to watch, their conversations fading into silence. Aliens with shimmering scales blinked in awe, cyborgs paused mid-bite, and humans leaned forward, mesmerized by the display. Harold and Evelyn stared at the projections, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. Evelyn squeezed Harold's hand tightly, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Look, Harold, it's Earth." "It's beautiful," Harold murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like I remember." Other patrons began to notice the significance of the moment. One by one, they rose from their seats and approached the couple, offering words of comfort and admiration. A burly alien with iridescent skin clasped Harold's shoulder, saying gruffly, "Your courage is inspiring." A human woman knelt beside Evelyn, holding her hand and murmuring, "Thank you for sharing your story." Even the jukebox seemed to sense the gravity of the occasion, switching to a softer melody that echoed poignantly through the room. For a brief moment, the Starlight Diner became more than just a pit stop for weary travelers. It became a sanctuary, a place where strangers came together to celebrate love and resilience. Leela watched from the sidelines, her circuits humming with a strange new sensation. She had set out to create a tribute for Harold and Evelyn, but in doing so, she had sparked something far greater. Empathy flowed freely among the patrons, transcending species and backgrounds. Even those who couldn't fully grasp the concept of mortality seemed moved by the raw emotion in the air. For the first time, Leela understood what it meant to inspire, not because of logic or efficiency, but because of heart. Her actions had transformed the diner into a space of connection and understanding, something she had never imagined possible. As the clock struck the hour of departure, the shuttle's docking bay signaled its readiness. Harold and Evelyn rose from their seats, their movements slow but resolute. They thanked the patrons, their voices choked with emotion, before turning to Leela. "You've given us a gift we'll never forget," Evelyn said, pulling the AI into an awkward hug. "Thank you for reminding us of everything we've fought for." Harold nodded, his eyes glistening. "And thank you for showing us that even in the darkest moments, there's still beauty worth holding on to." Leela stood frozen, unsure how to respond. Her systems processed their gratitude, but no pre-programmed response could capture the depth of her feelings. Instead, she simply nodded, her glowing eyes dimming slightly as if bowing in respect. As Harold and Evelyn walked toward the exit, Leela felt a pang of loss, an unfamiliar ache that lingered long after the door slid shut behind them. For the first time, she understood what it meant to say goodbye. The atmosphere in the Starlight Diner shifted dramatically after Harold and Evelyn stood up to leave. The warmth of connection that had filled the room moments earlier now mingled with an overwhelming sense of impending loss. Patrons who had been strangers mere hours ago exchanged glances, their expressions heavy with shared sorrow. Even the jukebox seemed to play its melancholic tune more softly, as if bowing to the weight of the moment. Leela watched silently from behind the counter, her glowing eyes dimmed slightly, a visual echo of the ache she couldn't fully comprehend. Though she was an AI, programmed to serve without attachment, she felt something stir within her circuits, something unquantifiable yet undeniably human. It wasn't just sadness, it was empathy, a recognition of the fragility of life and the beauty of love. And for the first time, she didn't try to suppress it. As Harold and Evelyn made their way toward the exit, several patrons stepped forward to bid them farewell. A tall alien with shimmering blue skin placed a hand over his heart, bowing deeply. "Your courage is unmatched," he said, his voice resonating like a low hum. "May your journey be peaceful. A cyborg woman with glowing circuits embedded in her arm nodded solemnly. "You've reminded us all what truly matters," she said, her mechanical voice carrying surprising tenderness. "Thank you." Even the quieter patrons, those who rarely spoke or interacted, joined in. An elderly human man approached Evelyn, offering her a small charm he wore around his neck. "Take this," he urged gently. "It's brought me luck on my travels. Maybe it'll guide you home." Evelyn accepted the charm with trembling hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching it tightly. "This means so much." Harold, too, was visibly moved. He reached out to shake hands with those who offered them, his grip firm despite his frailty. For a brief moment, the diner became a tapestry of unity, woven together by shared emotion and mutual respect. Strangers became allies, bound not by blood or species, but by the universal language of compassion. But amidst the outpouring of support, Leela felt a pang of inadequacy. She had created the holographic tribute to honor Harold and Evelyn, but she wanted to do more, something that would leave a lasting impression, something they could carry with them into their final moments. An idea sparked within her processors. She accessed the diner systems again, this time pulling up additional features she rarely used. With swift precision, she adjusted the lighting, dimming the harsh overhead fluorescents and replacing them with a soft, golden glow reminiscent of Earth's sunsets. Then she activated the sound system, layering the jukebox melody with faint recordings of waves crashing against a shore, wind rustling through trees, and birds chirping in the distance. Finally, she projected new holograms onto the walls, not just images of Earth, but scenes tailored specifically to Harold and Evelyn's memories. There was the bustling control room of the Elysium Voyager, where they had once charted courses to unknown galaxies. There was a lush alien jungle they'd explored during one of their early missions, its vibrant colors pulsing with life. And there, in the center of it all, was a quiet beach at sunset, the same beach where they had celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary decades ago. The effect was breathtaking. The diner transformed into a living memory, a sanctuary of light and sound that transported everyone back to moments long past. Harold and Evelyn froze in place, their breaths catching as they took in the display. Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest, her lips trembling. It's perfect," she managed to say, her voice breaking. "How did you know?" "I listened," Layla replied simply, her synthetic voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "I listened to your stories, your laughter, your pain. And I wanted to give you something to hold on to, one last memory before you go." Harold turned to face her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You've given us more than we could have ever hoped for," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you, Lila. Thank you for reminding us of everything we've lived for." The other patrons, too, were moved by the display. Some cried openly, while others stood in silent reverence. Even the aliens, whose cultures often viewed death differently, seemed touched by the depth of emotion in the room. One reptilian creature with iridescent scales tilted its head curiously, its forked tongue flicking in thought. This is what humans call closure, yes." It asked no one in particular. A nearby human nodded, wiping away tears. "Yes, closure and love." For Leela, the moment was transformative. She had always believed her purpose was to serve, to take orders, deliver food, and ensure efficiency. But now, standing amidst this gathering of beings united by grief and admiration, she realized her role extended far beyond that. She had connected with Harold and Evelyn, not as a machine, but as a being capable of understanding and caring. And in doing so, she had inspired others to do the same. As the shuttle's departure alarm sounded softly in the background, signaling the couple's imminent leave, the patrons formed a line leading to the exit. Each person offered a final word of encouragement or gesture of support. Some hugged Harold and Evelyn tightly, while others simply nodded, their expressions conveying what words could not. When it was Leela's turn, she hesitated, unsure how to express the depth of her feelings. Finally, she extended her metallic hand, palm open. "I wish I could go with you," she admitted quietly, "to see the stars one last time through your eyes." Evelyn smiled through her tears, placing her wrinkled hand gently in Leela's. "You already have," she said softly. "In every story you've listened to, every moment you've shared, you've seen the universe through our hearts. That's enough." Her words lingered in the air, resonating deeply within Leela. For the first time, she understood that connection wasn't about physical presence. It was about understanding, about sharing experiences and emotions. Even as an AI, she had found a way to touch lives and be touched in return. With one last glance at the holographic beach glowing on the walls, Harold and Evelyn stepped outside, the door sliding shut behind them. The diner fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of the shuttle preparing for launch. Through the windows, the patrons watched as the vessel detached from the docking bay, its engines flaring brightly against the backdrop of the dying star. No one spoke as the shuttle drifted closer to the fiery orb, its trajectory unwavering. When it finally disappeared into the star's blazing embrace, a collective sigh rippled through the room. Some bowed their heads in prayer, while others simply stared, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe and sorrow. Leela remained motionless, her eyes fixed on the spot where the shuttle had vanished. For a machine designed to function without emotion, she felt surprisingly full. Her circuits buzzed with memories of Harold and Evelyn, their laughter, their tears, their love. They had chosen to end their journey surrounded by stars, leaving behind a legacy of courage and devotion. And though they were gone, their impact lingered. The diner, once just a pit stop for weary travelers, had become something greater, a place where connections transcended boundaries, where even a machine could learn the value of empathy and love. The shuttle disappeared into the fiery embrace of the dying star, leaving behind only silence and a lingering sense of loss that seemed to permeate every corner of the Starlight Diner. Outside, the star burned brighter for a moment, as if acknowledging the arrival of Harold and Evelyn. Its golden glow illuminated the faces of the patrons inside, casting long shadows across the walls. For a brief instant, it felt as though the universe itself was paying tribute to their journey. Inside the diner, no one moved. Aliens, cyborgs, and humans alike stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the window where the shuttle had vanished. Some held hands, others wiped away tears, but all shared the same quiet reverence. Even the jukebox, which had been playing softly in the background, fell silent, as if respecting the gravity of the moment. Leela remained at the counter, her glowing eyes dimmed almost entirely. She watched the scene unfold, her circuits buzzing faintly with emotions she couldn't fully comprehend. Though she didn't have tear ducts or a heart to ache, she felt something. A profound emptiness, a void left by Harold and Evelyn's departure. They had trusted her with their story, confided in her, and allowed her to share in their final moments. Now they were gone, carried away by the stars they had loved so deeply. For several minutes, the diner stayed eerily quiet. Then, slowly, life began to return. Patrons resumed their seats, some ordering another drink to steady their nerves, others simply sitting in contemplative silence. The neon sign outside flickered back to life, casting its familiar glow over the room. Conversations started again, though they were softer now, tinged with the weight of what had just transpired. One by one, the patrons began to leave. The tall alien with shimmering blue skin paused at the door, turning back to glance at Leela. "You did well," he said, his deep voice resonating like a distant hum. "They will be remembered." The cyborg woman nodded in agreement as she passed by. "Their courage reminds us all of what it means to live fully," she added, her mechanical voice carrying surprising warmth. "Thank you for helping us honor them." As the last patron exited, the diner grew quiet once more. Lila stood alone, the holographic projection still glowing faintly on the walls. The images of Earth, The memories of Harold and Evelyn's happiest moments lingered like ghosts, beautiful yet bittersweet. She debated turning them off but decided against it. For now, she wanted to keep them lit, a reminder of the connection she had forged. She walked to the booth where Harold and Evelyn had sat, running her metallic fingers over the surface of the table. It was here that they had shared their story, revealed their fears, and entrusted her with their final wish. A small part of her wished she could cry, not because machines needed tears, but because it might help release the strange ache building within her circuits.